And it's funny you bring that up about debt, because there's a lot of studies that show that women don't like debt. And that's a lot of times why our businesses don't scale as soon as they could, because men aren't afraid to bring on debt and women are. And so creating those banking relationships, getting those lines of credit in place, really fundamentally important for women's businesses.
All right, on this week's Saratoga segment, we are joined by Abby Tegnelia, the CEO of Saratoga Living. Abby's back. I'm so excited.
Hi there. How are you?
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And you're going to give us a little sneak peek of the next Saratoga Living magazine?
That's right. The spring issue is out. It's our design issue, and we're so excited for it.
Oh, my God. This is like really applicable to me right now.
Yes?
Because we're about to buy a house.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
And it's an old home.
Oh, you're going to have so much fun, and you're going to get so many ideas from our issue.
Okay, so who's on the cover? That's what I care most about.
Teakwood Builders.
Oh, Jim Sasko.
Yes. His story really won me over. His upbringing in Cohoes, his dad owned a hardware store. He is the real deal. Grew up with this, and now he just got some national awards. He's doing great, and his designs are gorgeous.
He does like really nice work.
Yes, it is so, so beautiful. The cover is beautiful. We fell in love with all of his designs. The photography is amazing. And then once we heard, his story, it just, we were bowled over.
That's on the cover, and the article's inside. It's like an interview with Jim.
It is.
So speaking of designers, you have a mom friend of mine inside the magazine.
Are we talking about Caroline?
Yes.
Fantastic. So the Beekman Atelier is opening in about a week or so, and I'm so excited for this project that she has. It is part boutique, and then she also has a designer background, so she's actually making her own line of clothes. And then in addition to that, she's really into sustainable fashion. So if you have a vintage dress you like or something that you want to bring in, she will create a bespoke look just for you.
Oh my gosh. The way she's described it to me is like a sew and sip.
I love it.
So I think it'll be fun to maybe do a little, bottle of champagne, a little sewing some button. I'm assuming that I'm going to be able to bring all my shit that is like buttons off and zipper not working, that sort of stuff, and bring it there. And either she will show me how to fix it or she will just fix it.
That's exactly right. She wants you to bring in things that you want to reuse, which I just love so much. Obviously, I come from California. I'm really into the environment. I really loved her inspiration for it, too. The way she described going into a sewing shop in Europe where literally you could buy something in the front and you could hear the whirring of the sewing machines in the back. I just loved that whole creative atmosphere.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. So on Facebook and social media, I've been seeing these photos of old school Saratoga, black and white photos, but they're turned into color photos, and I can't get enough of them. It's like I go seek this guy out, and I'm just like, okay, do another photo. Please tell me you're including him in something that Saratoga Living is doing soon.
We could not ignore this guy on Facebook in our design issue. He has found these amazing photos, just like you're saying, of Congress Park in the 1800s and a presidential election happening and the signs up on Broadway in the early 1900s, all kinds of old pictures of the old grand hotels on Broadway and everyone, out for their Sunday stroll. And in black and white, it doesn't jump out as much as in color. Yeah. And so he's adding color to them. And everyone on Facebook, it's an addiction. I also look him up. My entire feed right now is John Bulmer. That's his name. And he talks about his inspiration and how he started. And we have an entire album full of the photos. It's so cool.
How wild must it have been to be walking down Broadway and you see an engine and also horse hooves.
Right.
It's just so cool.
I know. So the joinery is opening this spring. It's finally open. You can go down there. I love their mission. Woodworking itself, the instruments and everything that you need for it is so prohibitively expensive. So it's become this hobby of sort of the elite.
Yeah.
And now there's a place you can go. He has bought all of the equipment that you need, and anybody can come in and learn. And it's all inclusive. That's their big push. And it's really exciting.
Yeah. So this guy is really fascinating, too, because he comes from the startup world, the tech world. He's been very successful, and he wants to have an impact on Saratoga. And he's very involved in the Preservation Foundation. I think he's on the board. And I was very interested in what was going to happen with the Children's Museum, because I don't know if you know this, but I wanted to buy that building and put pallet there and also put childcare there. And then I met John, and I was like, okay, fine. You can
Yes.
have this building.
He won
John.
me over too. Their
is
neighbor, as you know.
Right.
And so, who's taking over that parking lot? Who's taking over this beautiful building? And yes, he won me over too. As far as, your interest level, a lot of stuff to do over there. Just if you have any interest at all, just go over there.
Let's go build a chair.
Let's do it.
Or a table.
Okay.
Ooh, that's a good one. You know how lots of women say there's no seat at the table, so I built my own?
There you go.
We could go build our own table.
I love it.
At the joinery. So this issue of Saratoga Living, the spring issue, is on stands now.
It's on stands now. It's being distributed as we speak. And I can't wait for you to grab your copy.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On this week's episode of Seriously Catherine, I'm joined by Andrea Crisafulli. That's right, from Crisafulli Brothers, even though she's a sister. I love this. She's bought this company back from her family, and she's also just this amazing entrepreneur, which I admire so much about her. But more importantly, she's a mom, and she's juggling all the things. And most recently, she's dipped her toes into the hospitality world. And by dipping her toes, I mean acquiring the lodge at Schroon Lake. Let's jump in. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you. I've admired you for a long time. And when I joined EO, that was one of the things that I recognized, who are the other women that are there? Because I'm sure you know the statistic, but less than 2% of women make $1 million. It's sort of there's a barrier there for women to be involved in that organization.
Sure.
So I was really excited to see that you were a part of it and you'd been a part of it. Were you one of the first people to sort of start the chapter here?
So I wasn't the beginning team for EO, but I was for WPO, Women's Presidents Organization.
Okay.
I was a founding member of that here. Yeah.
Cool. So tell us sort of how you got into the business. It's a family business. It's a legacy business. That's hard.
Yeah, it's a long story. I'll try to keep it short. But so yeah, we're 82 years this year, so I'm third generation. My kids would be fourth generation, and grew up in the family business, always wanted to be a part of it. I can remember, in all honesty, my dad driving me to high school, and I can remember smelling the blueprints in the back of the car and just always wanted to be at the shop. And when I was a young kid, my older brothers, I had 3 older brothers. I have 3 brothers, 3 sisters. I'm the sixth of 7. And they would always get to go to work with my dad, and the girls would have to stay home, and my dad would call it women's work. We'd stay home and do women's work, and I hated it. So things did finally work out where when I was in college, I went to Russell Sage. I ended up working there part-time. And then right before graduation, I remember approaching my dad and saying, what I'd really like to do is work in the family business. And he said, well, let me talk to your brothers and get back to you. And when he got back to me, he said that they had talked about it and they really decided that construction's no place for a woman.
What?
Yeah, true story.
Oh my God. And these are your people.
Yeah. When he said construction wasn't for women, I think he wanted better for me, is what I would have to guess. But he, old school Italian, I knew no was no.
Yeah.
So I kind of went out on my own, and I had a psychology degree. And then thankfully, within a year, something happened at the business in the finance department where they couldn't trust the person that was there. And they reached out and said, hey, would you like to come into the business? So that was 1988, and I've been there ever since.
Okay, so I don't know. I can't help but think of my own family. My dad's and his brothers and all the boys were all in construction, and and there's a lot of the same sort of just little quips that would be said at dinner or with the family, you don't need to be involved, And I loved it. I loved going to work with my dad. I loved walking around the projects and just was a home builder. So it was just so fascinating to me to be part of all that. It just reminds me were there any sort of scenarios where they would talk shop at home and you were kind of well, of course, yeah, someone stole from you because you didn't have me doing it, So I was super sassy, and I used to always sort of interject with a lot of these things just to be well, if you let me help, maybe you wouldn't have that issue.
So my dad didn't talk about work much at home.
Really?
He was really good at separating. Our dinner table was not work talk. He would come home and it was family time. And he was very much that way. Again, dad of 7. It was always the more people around, the better.
Yeah.
He was always all about that. So I wouldn't have known that there was a problem at work.
Yeah, okay.
He wouldn't have shared that.
Yeah, and your mom, was she involved?
Stay-home mom.
Stay-home mom. Okay.
Stay-home mom, the most incredible mom.
Wow. So I remember you telling me you had bought back this, like you bought into the business, you became an owner, and then you had to like buy it back or like,
Yeah,
like
so
2
it's
or
my
3
fun
times.
fact. It's
Okay.
my fun fact, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've actually bought the business 3 times. So, my dad was obviously the owner, and I was working with my 2 brothers, and so we bought my father out. And then one of my brothers, the oldest, decided to go out on his own. And so my brother Dan and I bought out our other brother, and then eventually I bought out my brother Dan. So yeah, I bought the business 3 times. It was amazing when that was, it was finally mine 100%. It was, not that I would have minded if they wanted to stay, but, it was certainly something that was in the cards.
Yeah. And then at that point, is that when you were able to sort of like grow it? Kind of take us through, like, was it just like a mom and pop sort of shop? Like, how did it turn into what it is today? You have such a huge platform. You're so well respected in the community. It's like you're everywhere. I can't imagine it was like that. And you're the face of it, like you're on the radio, you're on the commercials. So it's just like, I want to sort of hear like how that happened.
Yeah. So
not overnight, I'm sure.
No. And it is my brand. So I guess I would say that it really went on a trajectory after I took over. I've always been passionate about the business. My brother, who I was partners with, I would say was not always equally as passionate about the business. So when he still worked for the company after the buyout, but I really wanted to take it to the next level and just surrounded myself with fabulous people. And if you don't do that, it's never going to happen. So I definitely worked to create that network and solidified relationships, just a lot of head down and hard work.
Yeah. And then what do you say to some, like, I kind of joke. This is not joking really, though. I would love for Posey to become a plumber because she would make a killing. She would make so much money. There's just no women in this industry. And there's so many incentives to support women-owned businesses now.
True.
It's like, yeah, go to trade school and become a plumber, an electrician, or a welder and, like, make some bank.
I really feel like there's a renewed interest in the trades. I really do. I believe it. I was just the other night at an event and Roger, from Hudson Valley was speaking about the fabulous Workforce Development Institute they're putting in there. And there's a lot happening that I think is bringing people back to grassroots, positions like the trades.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, it's just like an affordability and access at this point, too. Like, to go to college now, it's like you are definitely paying debt for years and years and years. We actually just paid off my husband's student loans.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are we still paying this? And I think for him, he was like, well, it's like that thing where, like, I signed up and I'm just paying what I'm supposed to pay. And I paid off mine, like, as soon as possible. I just like hated having the debt. But I think for him, it was like a reminder that he made this decision to like go to college and take on these loans. And I don't know, I think it was more like a tortured thing. But I worked my ass off to put myself through college. And I didn't take out that many loans, but I worked throughout and I paid it as I went sort of thing. I don't want my kids to have to deal with that. Like,
yeah.
And I also don't want to have to save money now for them to go to college just to not know what they want to do.
Again, I think if you're going to be an accountant or, an attorney, they kind of know, and that's what they're going to do. But the rest really end up, on many different pathways. And it's funny you bring that up about debt because there's a lot of studies that show that women don't like debt. And that's a lot of times why our businesses don't scale as soon as they could because men aren't afraid to bring on debt and women are. And so creating those banking relationships, getting those lines of credit in place, really fundamentally important for women's businesses.
Yeah. The other part, I just think women are a bit risk adverse, I would think. I don't know the statistic of that, but I know that there aren't as many women entrepreneurs. I mean, that's got to be why. But I also think there's not a lot of women who take the risk in other businesses like investing and, partnering with other entities. You've sort of like gone around and done that now because you have success with your original company and now you're able to get into these other arrangements and projects that are super fun. Like you're in the hospitality business now.
I am. We're now in hospitality. I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it.
And tell us like how that came about. I mean, you had to have been working with the Bonaccios day in, day out on projects and
No, not at all.
Nothing to do with that. Okay.
Sonny and I met maybe 15 years ago. We served on the chamber board together, became buddies. And then, we've never actually done we may have done a project or two together, but not like we're in a relationship where we're on, typically we're. And, I was thinking about a fun fact this morning when I was thinking about coming on the show. And when you think about, like they say, if you're your 8-year-old self, 10-year-old self, what would you love to do? And I was travel agent and to run a summer camp. And the lodge is sort of like a summer camp. So the lodge at Schroon Lake, my dad... And we've been on Schroon Lake over 50 years. So my dad, as a young boy, fell in love with Schroon Lake, and then as I think in his 40s, bought a plot of land, literally built our family home there. So it's been a part of my whole life. So there was this piece of property that I just absolutely loved. It was owned by the Word of Life. And we would go up and I'd ride my bicycle up and check it out. It was fascinating. Just loved it. And then during COVID, my husband and I would sort of drive through up, in the property and saw that it was starting to get kind of dilapidated and like, geez, I wonder what's going on here. So sort of put that word out in town with friends and said, hey, if you hear any word that this is up for sale, let me know. So sure enough, someone tips me off that it is. I reach out and it's already under contract. So we're like devastated, like, oh, we missed this opportunity. And then through a couple of just interesting things I noticed in town, I thought to myself, I wonder if this is Sunny. So I reached out to Sunny and we had a quick phone call. Literally, I'm not kidding, within 30 minutes, we had decided we would be 50-50 partners on the project. And from that moment on, here we are. And it's been nothing but fun. I mean, it's had its challenges, but in all honesty, in terms of the running, the operation, the construction, we've been lockstep every step of the way.
That's so cool. Yeah. And then you hear this about when you get on a board with someone, you get to know these people, and then you get to work with them. So it's got to be like such a cool full circle moment. You're working with somebody that you respect and have sort of like grown your businesses simultaneously. And then on top of that, you're able to like invest and impact this community that you grow up like loving.
I love that you said that because for me, that's a big part of it. It's an investment in the community. I really love that aspect of it. The Schroon Lake I grew up in was thriving. My swim lessons were there. I played softball there. I mean, it was this, we had square dance on Wednesday nights. I mean, it was just a really thriving, fun summer town, and it's sort of fallen off. So this is really a new venture for the region, and I'm really excited. It's like summer camp for families.
Yeah,
it's
oh my God, I love that.
It's a really fun family, low-key. It's never going to be Lake George or Lake Placid, right? Schroon Lake, it's kind of a hidden treasure.
That's awesome. And I mean, again, this is like one of my like the why that I have is like I want to be able to do fun things like that. I want to be successful in my own business so that I can give back to the communities that I care about. I desperately want to like have I'm from New Orleans, so I desperately want to do something back home where I can like make the impact there that I've made here. And it's just, I can't wait to do that eventually. One day it'll happen.
And so again, what are you doing? You're manifesting, right? I'm a huge manifester.
Do you do vision boards?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's so fun to kind of like hear, like what do you do to sort of like keep yourself eye on the prize and keep going? Because we were talking a lot about the highlight reel, like you're able to do all this stuff, but it's so stressful. People don't realize like how much like day-to-day decision fatigue sometimes get.
It does. Last year was certainly one of those years. We opened up the lodge. I actually split our business last year. We split out our home services and our mechanical contracting. We had a lot going on last year. So there was a lot of fatigue and a lot of decision making. But I also love change. I'm one of those people who I don't like to be stagnant for a long time. So I have to work on respecting and understanding that everyone doesn't accept change at the same level. So, when you have a couple hundred employees, you can't just always be like, all right, here we go. Some people, it's like terrifying to have change.
Right.
I embrace it. I really love it.
Okay, so I said this earlier, but what I admire so much about you is that so growing up, I was sort of like always brought up to be like, okay, go to college, meet a boy, ride his coattails, get married, have his babies, don't worry about work, like you don't need money, like just get taken care of kind of thing.
So you did exactly what your parents had hoped, Catherine.
I was on that track, but then I moved to Saratoga and I was just completely, wow, this is an opportunity for me to like really try something new and test it out. And I had Mark's support. So we opened Paint and Sip, had babies, and then it started to get like, okay, now it's time for you to settle down. And now it's time for you to sort of like take this and put it on the back burner and focus on your family and your kids. And I'm not going to say we didn't have like some marriage sort of challenges at that point, being like young parents and newly married a couple of years. And people told me like, you can't do all this at the same time. You know, you need focus, you need to prioritize. And I sort of was like, the hell I can't, you know, like, of course I can do this. Like, what are we telling women if we tell them they have to choose a lane and they have to just pick one thing? Like, I mean, now I'm a mom of 3 girls. I can't imagine telling them just marry a nice boy and be taken care of. Like, that's just the worst advice ever, right?
I'd like to think so, yes.
So I try to find people like yourself that are doing all these things simultaneously, and it seems like you're killing it.
You know, so I told you I was one of 7. My older sisters, just brilliant in my mind. I admire them both so much. And they really are the ones that taught me about being present. I don't think I could have done it all without, again, you need your village, right? But my sisters talked a lot about being present. And like when you're home, be on the floor, playing Legos, building castles, you know, whatever it is, forts and all that sort of thing. Be outside, get in the mud, take walks. For me, the only way I could make it work is that when I was home, I was extremely present with my kids. And I think that that's one thing I try when I mentor young women now is I talk a lot about your devices. You know, I think that you can either be present and be really present. You can put down your devices and make that quality time.
Yeah.
So I think it's challenging because I think there's a lot of pressure to be on your devices right now. But I think it's an important thing if you want relationships with your children is that you stay connected and you do it by being present.
Yeah, and I mean, you must have boundaries, right? Like, you know how to say no, you know when to say like, okay, you know, I'm not going to do that project because it's going to take away from the kids at a certain season in their lives.
Yeah, I was pretty good about setting boundaries too. Again, my sisters just gave me so much advice on that sort of thing. And they, you know, were very successful as well. For instance, when my kids, there were certain seasons, like you're saying, that I'd be very involved. And then there were times when I wasn't, especially when my kids started to get into the high school years and I knew I didn't have a lot of time with them left.
Yeah.
So your girls are young. I actually resigned from boards like the last couple of years. My kids are very close in age. So I had 3 and 38 months. So it was just, okay, now I'm just not going to be engaged in these other things. I'm going to be home. I'm going to make every game. I'm going to, you know, just be present whenever I could be.
Yeah.
That was important to me.
And then when you were having kids, was it around the same time that you were heavily involved in the businesses? And
yeah, that's actually part of the story that I didn't share. Is so the natural sequence was supposed to be my oldest brother was supposed to run the company. And then I had 10 years to sort of be, you know, mentored by him before I took over. And then when he decided to leave, you know, I had 3 kids under 8. Right. So they're in elementary school and we weren't that small. I want to say we probably had 60 employees at the time. And then he left and he took a whole division of the company with him, more than half the company's revenue when he left.
wow.
So I had a lot to rebuild, and it was a part of the company that I had never been involved in. It was the construction side, not the home service side.
Okay.
So it was a lot of rebuilding, and again, just really trusting other people and to get us where we needed to be, where I wanted to be. So we have a family reunion. I told you, my dad loved family being together. So we used to have a pig roast Labor Day weekend every year, and it would be with all the neighbors and up at our lake home. And then when the kids started going to college, she's like, well, this can't be because they're not here. It's Labor Day weekend. So we moved it back into August so that the kids who were college age could be there. So then when my husband and I ended up buying the lake house when my parents, you know, got older, we now follow the tradition. So it's the second Saturday of August, and you wouldn't believe the crowd. I mean, everyone really works to be there at that family reunion.
That's awesome.
And I think there's, you know, probably 50 some of us, and it's just fabulous. It's great. So believe it or not, I would definitely consider our family very close.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the cousins stay in touch with one another.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's like a value that sort of
Huge
follows through to your company. We went and toured it, right? It's so much bigger than that. It's like almost like a tech company. You're walking into this beautiful facility. It's so organized.
Thank you.
Everyone really seemed happy. I don't know if you just told everyone to get happy right before you walked in. I doubt it, though.
Yeah, culture's huge. I mean, giving back to the community, the culture for our employees, huge values of ours. Right? I mean, the community piece is really big because I always say, you know, Crisafulli brothers wouldn't be here today if the community hadn't supported us. So it's a core value of ours to give back to the community. And then, you know, we wouldn't be who we are without our team.
Yeah.
I mean, the team just makes me look good, Catherine. Honest to God, that's the keys. They really just make me look good. They are driven. We try to really hire based on personality. It's not, you can be the greatest plumber in the world, but if you're going to go into Catherine's home and you're not going to treat her how you should treat her,
Yeah.
you're just not for us.
Yeah. And your husband's involved in the business, like you are running it together?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Because I fired Mark.
Okay. So we work fantastic together in that I'm the visionary, he's the implementer.
Okay.
And as you know, like those two roles are so key, and we're really good at staying in our own lanes. He might not say I'm great in mine, because sometimes I'll dip down. I can't help myself because I used to have that role.
Right.
But yeah, pretty much he runs operations and I'm more of the strategic visionary.
Oh, cool.
So it works out. It's actually a really, really good recipe for us.
And have you sort of taken your dad's stance where like you're at home, you don't talk shop?
I don't think my kids would say that as much as I grew up that way. Because I think of, again, technology. I think my dad didn't have to bring it home with him because he didn't have a phone sitting there or his laptop open, maybe seeing a Google review. That's going to throw you into like, how did we do that? How did we leave them without water? What are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Get on this. So I think we probably bring it home more than for that reason. Otherwise, I don't think we choose to talk about work. But I think that it follows you a little bit more than it used to.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree too. I mean, the screens and that they drive me crazy. I used to up until very recently, it was like they didn't get screens unless we were on a long car ride or we were flying. But now, like the screens are in the schools, and it's like all the things that they're doing in school, they're on screens, and so it's like the homework is on a screen. I'm like, oh God, here they go again.
So I didn't have that. Like it was just. They were aged out, sort of. I mean, you still had to worry about, like, Facebook was, like, the thing back then.
How old are your
kids? I guess it would have been. They'll be 28, 27, and 26.
Okay.
We went to Sicily once with my dad, like a bucket list for him, and it was just 5 of the 7 of us, and one of my sister's husbands went with my dad. And it was the rainiest Sicily in like 26 years. Like it was typhoons, washouts. It was unbelievable. So we were constantly buying umbrellas and they would like break because the winds were so severe, right? So at this one point, I remember buying an umbrella and I have it over my dad. I get the umbrella and it's me and my dad. Next thing you know, he takes the umbrella and runs up and he's got my sister Patty, who's the oldest, covered with the umbrella. And I'm like, really? Are you kidding? So it was funny. He was super proud, I do know, in the end, but he wasn't someone to ever give a pat in the back, that's for sure.
Yeah, no,
It was not
my
his,
dad's the same way.
Not in his DNA.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I'm just like, well, that's like why.
Question in the world. They gave me the courage, the confidence. They were your own sounding board. I don't think you could find a better place to be a woman than in the Capital Region. I think that we are women that lift one another up.
Yes.
I really do. I think if you are willing to ask for help in the Capital Region, you're going to find women who are willing to help you and promote you and be there for you.
Yeah, I've experienced that. And I think that it's the perfect size region where everyone like knows everybody, you know? And so like if you just open up and ask for help or you let people know what you're trying to accomplish, there's someone that someone's going to be able to connect you to. And I find that like that has been really rewarding for me. And like the other sort of barrier, like WPO, EO, it's like you got to have that $1 million mark. So when only 2% of women make $1 million, like where do the other women go, you know? And so Pallet's sort of like the high school version of that. Or
I love
you know,
that.
Yeah, it's just, we need to it's like a pipeline, get to that point. And then also, not everybody wants to make $1 million. Like, that's not really everybody's goal.
Absolutely.
So if, I think having like a successful lifestyle business where you're enjoying what you're doing, you're making some money, you're having fun, you need support there too. All right. So do you have any tips up your sleeve for someone, a woman entrepreneur who is trying to navigate, advancing their business and their life that you still utilize today?
I'm a big goal setter. So I'm still a writer down. I have lists and of things I want to accomplish. I'm really big on that. Write it down, make it happen. I have followed that for many years. I looked back not too long ago in one of my notebooks, and I found some of the things, and I was surprised at how many things I had achieved because, those were always things that I just, time after time, they would stay on that list until I could cross them off. So I think being really clear on your goals, but at the same time, realizing that there's going to be forks in the road. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge proponent of that, right? So you may have your sights set on something and think that that's really where you want to be going, but then something inevitably happens and there's a fork in the road, and that's when you need to pause and sort of, okay, am I still headed for that? Or is there another, avenue here for me that I want to pursue? I really think that's important, that you have your goals, write them down, but then also realize that you're not always going to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Belonging to organizations, meeting people. I feel like women now, I think you have so many tools. I think that women now are so much smarter than we were. I really do. I see young, professionals like yourself that I think are so much further ahead than many women, business owners of my generation.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, and I try not to focus on like how much further we have to go. And I do like to like reflect on where we've been.
I've never brought gender into the workplace for me. And I think that I have to thank my father for. My mother also, my sisters and I will say, my mother, there was never anything we mentioned doing that she would ever have said, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea, or you can't do that. Mm-hmm. That was never in my mind as something that they would, say there were barriers. But I never sat at a table and thought of myself as a woman at a table. I never brought gender into the equation. I was a business person.
Yeah.
And the people I was sitting with are all business people. I just never thought that way.
Yeah, well, it's like, it can be like a detriment to sort of call that out in a room full of men, right? Ooh. Like, they're already threatened naturally by women. So why sort of point that out? It's one of those like sort of like treat people like you would want to be treated.
Exactly. So, golden rule.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm such a golden rule person.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm the same. It's like you don't have to sort of like call out the elephant in the room. Everybody knows you're a badass. They're already a little threatened, so put them at ease.
Yeah, and exactly.
I like
your thinking.
Yeah, love that. All right, well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited we found the time.
I know.
You're busy.
There's a couple reschedules, but I'm glad we finally pulled it off. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My facepalm mom moment, okay, is since when does the leprechaun come to your house and play tricks on your kids and leave golden coins everywhere? Like, I did not grow up with a leprechaun come into my house like the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus. No, I didn't have a leprechaun, but apparently it's a thing now. And so Ruby, of course, was like devastated on Sunday morning when there was no evidence of a leprechaun sneaking into our house and wrecking our house, which is what I told her. I said, listen, the leprechaun probably did come and recognized that the house was already wrecked, thought that his buddy leprechaun had already been by, and decided to leave. I mean, that's the only explanation I could come up with. I mean, I just don't understand. I need to hear from moms. Like, since when did we come up with this leprechaun thing? My point is that why do we do this to ourselves, moms? Like, why do we create more things that we have to coordinate? Let the leprechaun know when to come, or, that's the moms doing that. The moms coordinating with the Easter Bunny, the moms coordinating with the Tooth Fairy, the moms coordinating with Santa Claus, and it's frustrating. I think that this is not doing us any service. Where's the balance? How are we supposed to know our worth and, demand our value if, like, it's all these dudes that are getting the credit, and the mom's doing all the coordinating and the list collecting and the prompting of all the things? I'm proud of myself that I stood my ground and I did not give in to this like leprechaun baloney coming in and wrecking the house. I mean, I just like wrecking the house. There was no more work to create for mom to clean up. I mean, we just came off of Valentine's Day. And then we got the gold coins for St. Patrick's Day. And then right after that, we got the Easter Bunny coming. Like, ugh. And then what? Mother's Day, right? Yeah, I'm supposed to sit back and relax and let all this happen to me on Mother's Day? No, I'm going away this Mother's Day. I'm not sticking around. That has nothing to do with this, but okay, so that's that. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you want to connect with me, slide into my DMs on Instagram. My handle is Catherine Hover.